Thanks for being here. I think we're all getting into the room. Many of you were with us approximately a month ago when we had Dave and Heather on from Rent Perfect to talk about how things are changing in the environment, especially with eviction moratorium, and what we think the fallout will be from that going forward, how to make sure that we're being responsible in our own businesses and making good business decisions as we bring on future residents into our properties. And we got such a great response from that session that we've invited them to come back and do a full workshop on the Rent Perfect suite of products. And I say it that way because it is not just a screening service. First of all, we think it's the absolute best screening service out there. You're not getting just a pull from a big old pool of data without anybody looking at it. You're actually getting some human eyes on it and getting some ability to make some better decisions. You're also getting a full report, which you're not able to do in most cases. Dave will talk to you about, kind of the challenges with other reports and why we believe there's a superior. I will tell you that we have used it in our own rental property business because we just think that there's nothing else that can compare, and have had great success. And in comparisons to those I've used in the past, there truly is nothing better than having that extra bit of information and those human eyes on it. And besides that, the other things in the dashboard that you can use as an owner, absolutely incredible for being able to manage your business. But you don't need to hear that from me. You need to be able to see the product and understand it a little better. So I'm going to turn it over to the experts and let Dave and Heather tell you more about what they have inside the product. Take it away, guys.
Rebecca, thank you so much. It's glad to be back with you again. Yes, we're in sunny Arizona today. Now is the time to come visit Arizona. Don't wait too long. You might cook up a little bit. We're known for putting an egg on the sidewalk and having breakfast. So good to be with you today. Rebecca, you said something there that, so I originally got started in backgrounds because I actually owned an eviction company in 1992 and built an eviction company prior to the internet. And then as soon as I had clients saying, hey, listen, people are getting evicted next door in an apartment community and they're moving to the apartment community next door, and you have Arizona's largest eviction database. So, and you're a PI and you can give us credit. So will you do a search through your database, and then will you give us a credit bureau on these people? And that's how we kind of started from an eviction company, and we got into resident screening long before the internet happened. And then as the internet happened, more tools come on, and these database companies, they start saying, hey, we can make a lot of money, have 0 employees, have a computer work for us. You can put in a name and we'll just search these databases. And no one knows what's in these databases. These databases could be 6 months old, a year old. It could have 2 cities, 2 counties, 2 states. Nobody knows. You just run a name through and then you get back a no record found. Now, no record found just means a no record found in their database. It doesn't mean a no record found and they have no criminal history or they have nothing like that. So as we kind of progressed with the internet, we said, hey, listen, we're going to take the technology and we're going to use technology to its fullest, but we're not going to get rid of those human eyeballs, that human instinct. If you ask our private investigators here as they're doing a file, each of them do one file from beginning to end, because if we start passing a file around, you kind of lose that feeling you're getting, whether these guys can be good tenants or not. And we always have a motto here, you might have heard me say it, and that is we try to help our clients find the right tenant the first time. And if you weren't on that call, we kind of talked about if a tenant is going to pay you $2,000 a month and they're going to be your tenant for the next 5 years, they're worth $120,000. And we know that every tenant out there in the tenant pool isn't worth $120,000. We got to go find that $120,000 tenant. And so, one morning I woke up and I realized that I've added so many services to our background investigations, because that's really what we are. We are really at the core a PI agency. But I woke up one morning and I looked at our system and I said, we are a full landlord suite. We are a full software company, but unlike our competitors, they added a component of a background check. Our core is the background check. If we don't find the right people, then the lease and all the other stuff that we wrap around that isn't as valuable, because we are going to have the wrong people in our property. So Rent Perfect really starts with the right tenant. And think about this in the last year. If you had the right tenant, the moratorium didn't hurt you. If you had the wrong tenant, it hurts you. Now, I'm not even saying that they didn't lose their job or you couldn't foreseen that. The right tenant probably lost his job, got on unemployment, but still, the right tenant still made rent his priority. So you still got your rent. So we're going to kind of open up the doors. If you haven't been inside Rent Perfect, we're going to kind of show you the inside, because I am super lazy. Now, listen to this. I think I'm a great landlord, but my love is finding investments. My love is going out, looking at homes, looking at condos, looking at duplexes, looking at VRBOs. I don't so much love dealing with people. And so when you don't love doing something, you kind of drop the ball a little bit, or you kind of just get through it. And I didn't want to drop the ball, and I didn't want to just get through it. I wanted to create a platform where I was just as good as being a property manager in a way as I was out finding investments. Because if you ask me, David, are you a property manager or an investor? I'm certainly an investor. And that's because that's what I like to do. So I built this as a landlord, as an investor, and every time I came up with a snag or a problem, or I saw where we kind of didn't do things right, we made the changes. And when I sent it off to my programmers, I said, hey guys, we need to create this thing. And they came back. I said, no, that's not the way an investor thinks. That's not a way a landlord thinks. Go back and change that this way. Because we think and we do things a certain way. And so it was built for landlords by a landlord. So Heather, how are you doing today? Heather's going to help me with the presentation.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Hopefully you've seen Heather before. Heather's going to kind of run our slides, kind of jump in and kind of give her 2 cents. She's been a fantastic resource for Rent Perfect. She kind of is Rent Perfect. She takes most of, she's assigned to RIA clients directly all across the country. So she's taking, many, many phone calls a day and helping people set up their properties correctly, helping them do things right. So Heather, we're so glad to have you.
Thanks for having me.
And no one knows the program better than you. I'll just tell you that right now. So why don't we fire up the screen? So the first thing as I was a landlord, the first thing I had problems with is organization. I had a problem with this paper application, and I would keep it, in a folder back in the old days, and then finally I got a Word copy, and I'd always have to carry it with me when I showed a property, and I had to have it on the front seat. And then when I showed the property, I would give them the application if they were interested, and then they would go away, and then they'd call me and they say, okay, the application's ready. And then I'd say, okay, fax it here. Later I said, scan it here. And the whole process of an application, like a hard copy application that eventually ended up in a manila folder, just that process alone drove me crazy. So the very first thing we did is we teamed up with Experian, and we said, hey, listen, let us make an online application that taps right into the credit bureaus, and let's make everything online so I can get rid of this dang manila folder and have everything on my phone for anywhere I go to. So I was in a position sometimes where I was like, well, that file is at home. Well, that file is at work. Well, we've moved since then. Where did that file go? Where'd the filing? And I just wasn't super organized in being, a property manager. And so if you guys can get your applications online in the cloud and have it in a seamless process, you will find out how easy this is. So the very first thing a landlord does after they set up an account with Rent Perfect is they set up their properties, they set up their criteria. And we're not going to take you through a lot of that because we don't want to spend a lot of time there. But let me talk to you a little bit about criteria. We spent a lot of time on criteria last month. If you don't have a written rental criteria, then you might as well not do background checks. You might as well not even send them off to even see a credit score, because if you don't have a rental criteria, everybody qualifies. Now, in today's litigious society, you need to create a criteria. So we have it when we first come in, we coach our clients, set up your property and set up your rental criteria. Those are the two things you have to do. And those are just, what's the address? What kind of shape is it in? Is it a 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom? You just kind of tell us about, Heather, go into my property real quick and add a property. So you just kind of come in, put your property name, the address or city, state. You kind of come down. Here we see, are you going to use a 2-phase screening process? Jane knows about that in Cook County, where we run the credit first and then we come back and do the criminal later. Are we going to have renter's insurance be required for this property? And then we can come down and do the property details. Reason that we want to know property details is because later we're going to talk about a move-in process where they go around to each bedroom and bathroom and they take pictures of, and we need to know what your house consists of. Scroll down a little bit for me. Do you plan on creating a lease agreement for this property? You can go ahead and push yes. And then here's your lease template, and you can go through, and we'll get to that a little bit later, but we want you to set up the property first. Okay, head back to the home screen for me real quick. And then we want you to set up the criteria, and we're not going to go into that a lot because we spent a lot of time on that last week, but this will help you, and it'll ask you questions. It'll help you go through and set up a criteria for you. Now that criteria is going to get sent with the process I'm going to tell you about now, and that is the send invite process. So I show a property, someone says, hey, let me think about it. We're kind of seeing some other properties, and finally I get a phone call and say I'm eating lunch with my friend, and someone calls and says, or texts me and says, hey, we're going to take that property. I simply on my phone log into this system right here and send this invite right on my phone while I'm having lunch with my friend. It takes me 2 seconds. What this does is it sends an invite email off to our client or off to our applicant. Heather, I'll let you, I'm going a little quick for you, I know.
You can
And
keep
then
talking.
they get an email or they get and a text saying, hey, you've been invited to apply. We always, now notice the property criteria is the attachment up top, and that always has a property criteria to come in first. We want people to know what the criteria is before they apply, before they send an application fee. It gives them instructions how to do this. It reinforces how much the rent is so they can know what you talk about. And so then they, from there, push a link and they go off into this application process. Now, this newer generation, and that's kind of what we built things for, is this newer generation coming up. They don't want to deal with paper and pens anymore. Like half of them, their handwriting, they can't even write. Our schools have failed them in their writing. I'd see the paper application. I couldn't even read the thing. So most of them right there from their phone love to just fill out the application right from their phone. So I showed a property, it was about a year ago with a gal, and we went through the property. It was right in the middle of COVID, and I let her go in and we did that whole protocol. Remember, we were all worried about how we were going to show our properties, and she came outside into the parking lot, and it was a condo, and she said, hey, listen, I want this. And I said, why don't you take a little bit of time to think about it? I want to make sure you're not rushed. She said, no, I want this. What do I got to do? So I sent her the invite right there on my phone, and she walked over to her car, and she sat in her car and filled out the entire application. By the time I left the property, I got a notice saying, hey, her application is done. She filled out all of her information. She uploaded her driver's license. She uploaded bank statements. She uploaded her W-2 from work. And I had all that within minutes. Now, it wasn't all complete, and we still had to do the criminal background, but I got so much information right away that I went in. So let's look at the reports of what I got as I'm leaving the property. And this is just a test account. I'm not going to show you anybody's personal information, but Heather, scroll down a little bit so we can see the score right away. So over here on Minnie Mouse, I can see Minnie Mouse has a 690 credit score. We know 700 usually can buy a house, 625 is the average tenant. I can look at that first piece of data and say, okay, so far so good. We're moving in the right direction. And so then I can start looking at the rental app, the credit report. We give you a snapshot criminal history. It's not all inclusive. It's not what we live by, but in case there's something out there that we want you to see really quickly, in case you have 2 or 3 people on the line wanting the property, we can go ahead and take a look at that. And then we give you an instant address history. And I love this address history. If you know how to use this address history, it's really important to a landlord. You take the rental application, and that's the addresses they claim they lived at. You take our address history, and those are the addresses we see that they've lived at. And you can see if there's an address that's missing on the application and inquire about what is this address? You know, and so right now you're at this address living with your parents. You never mentioned this address, and maybe because it was they were evicted or they were going to get, the landlord wouldn't give them a good rental verification. So I love these reports. They give me so much. And this is what's instant about Rent Perfect. It's not an instant complete product, but this is what's instant about Rent Perfect. Okay.
You want to show a sample report or?
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to show a sample report. So once the report's done, the investigators looked at it. They take 4 to 6 hours to complete the full investigation. Go to the top first. We give you, we code in, because in Rent Perfect, let me back up. In Rent Perfect, when I sent them that invite, hold on real quick. My printer started getting noisy on me. I apologize. So when I sent them that invite, I'm just inviting them to apply, but actually what they're doing is they're running their own background and their own credit check on themselves, and then they're sharing it with you. So everything you see, they paid for it. And so we kind of code some things for some landlords. So in this, go back to the report. In this report, for example, it says recommendation C. You get A approved, C conditional, D denied. So it almost is like a letter grade. A is great. C is you're going to look at the application in its total, and then D is they didn't match your criteria. So then we can go down a little bit and start looking at the reporting. Now, a lot of this isn't filled out because this is sample data, and it's not live, but keep coming down. My score is not 599, Heather, you know. Embarrassing. Anyway, so this starts thinking all the things we've gone through the federal databases. We've done OFAC. Here's your credit summary. We go through evictions, judgments, liens, which is so important right now because the credit bureaus don't give us eviction, judgment, liens anywhere. So we have to go to other resources to find those records. And so if this was someone who was bad, this would be filled out with criminal records, robbery, theft, drugs, whatever it would be on there. But this is a final report that tells you the investigator has reviewed their credit, has reviewed that instant criminal that came in. They went to other jurisdictions, other courts where people have lived. They went to eviction courts. And at this point, they will give you a report that's super simple, laid out, easy to read. And then always give you that recommendation, which isn't our recommendation. It is your recommendation to yourself based on your criteria. You can always overrule your recommendation. I don't recommend it, but in case there's something that was there, you can always come in and overrule it. Now, any kind of conditional, you would overrule to either approved or denied. If you go to denied, then our system will prompt you to send an adverse action letter, which you're required to do. And so here's a place where fair housing, you can get in a lot of trouble not sending an adverse action letter. So this will help you in fair housing. So the two things that fair housing wants to know is you have a criteria. So we're going to help you set up a criteria so you stay out of trouble, and that you're sending adverse actions if you deny someone. And so Heather's kind of showing you an adverse action letter right now, but the whole system is intuitive and it takes you through and it kind of tells you your next step. Okay, so once I found the right person, it's time to go to the lease. So as we move down from our reports, we can go ahead and grab lease information. Because we've already set up our property and we've already assigned a lease template to it, we're ready to go, and it's super simple. Can you show the lease wizard, Heather?
Yeah, so here, like we'll just start with George Renter. You can see he's approved the property. We probably already all looked at his reports, and then down here, you'll see you can just move down to the next step, which is the lease information. So you just click prepare lease. Leases are free. And then it brings you through this wizard here. So do you want to kind of go over that?
Go next. So you review a lot of your basic information. You can change it. Then you simply say, when's your lease start date? When's your lease end date? Keep going, Heather. Oh, you have to fill it in before you can move on, don't you?
Yeah, but it's really easy. You can see how quickly I'm doing it. Most of the information's already filled out from your settings. So it's a
Right.
little bit of setup, and then it easily takes you through this wizard. You can
Okay.
add additional signers.
Okay. You can add non-signing residents. So these are kids or people who maybe aren't responsible for the leaf, but are going to be on your property. He, on his application, told us he drives a 2019 Ford Focus. You already have that information in there. If for some reason you had to add a vehicle, you could add a vehicle here. But most of this will already be filled in from the application. You've said that you accept dogs. Spot here is going to be there. He weighs 25 pounds. If he weighs over your max weight, it's going to alert you here. And if you charge pet rent right here, $10, it'll add that pet rent to your lease. If they push ESA or assistive animal and they prove it to you with documentation, it takes off the monthly rent because we can't charge for that.
Dave, by the way, there, just a clarification, question for clarification. The leases are extra in a fee or they are free?
No, they are free to RIA. When you sign up through RIA members get them free, but not everybody does.
So it's a special benefit of being a member of a RIA, that you do get those included with your relationship with Rent Perfect. Also, there's a question about the lease templates being state specific, and then one about Chicago lease. And I know that that is something that you offer, so I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, so we start you out with a lease template that our attorney started with that talk about different parts of the lease. You can check which ones you want to put into your lease, but it is your lease. It is a custom lease. You bring your Chicago lease to us. You can either send it to us, we'll make you a Chicago lease in here, or we have a really good lease creator that you just copy paste your language into our system and it creates your language, your lease. You don't have to use our lease. We just start you out with a template in case you're brand new and you like don't even know where to start. It's kind of like we give you a starting point, but from there you go ahead and build on that. So they are custom leases and they don't have to be our lease at all. We do have attorneys that have gone through each state, and we have a state-specific requirements in each of our lease. For example, Arizona requires we give a copy of the Landlord Tenant Act. We have that in our lease. If you use one of our leases in Arizona, different states have different requirements. We try to update that once a year. It's very hard to keep that updated nowadays with so many jurisdictions making rules and laws. So we do leave that in your court to do. So this is prior to us now actually creating a lease. I didn't want to spend too much time on it. That's a great question for us to jump back and let you know that they are custom to you. All right, Heather, keep on rolling through. Now here's our monthly payment and other fees. So your rent is $1,600 a month. We took out monthly pet rent because they said it was an assistive animal. And this tells you your complete and total payment. If you have other monthly fees, you can add them. If you have a pool maintenance fee, if you have landscaping fee, anything like that, you can add those fees here to the lease. And it'll just continue to calculate it for you. And this is pulling from your lease template that you charge $10 daily fee. Day late fee starts as a second. If there's a one-time late fee on this lease, we don't have one, but usually it's $50 or something like that for most people. Okay, now here's what's kind of cool. This is the move-in payment. So there's two parts of a lease. It's real easy to say rent $1,600 a month, but this is where we're going to calculate the move-in payment, which gets kind of difficult sometimes because sometimes we have to prorate the first month. And so right now we ask you, is the first month a full rent or prorated? Hit prorated for me. Then we ask you, how many days are we prorating? And it's going to do the calculation for you based on your rent.
Or you could say full rent.
Or full rent, and it'll pop in there for you. Okay. So if we had pet rent in here of $10, we took it out, but it would say $5 because she put in half a month. And it takes your fees, it takes everything and prorates it for you and gives you your subtotal on the end. And this really helps me as I'm going through a lease. I just say how many days you're going to be in, and this calculates it for me instead of me getting out of my calculator and trying to figure everything out. All right, next.
I missed something. It's just my computer's taking a second to load. There we go.
Okay, then it asks you for a security deposit. Go ahead and put a security deposit in there, 1,600. And then we say, has it been received or is it due? We want to know if they still owe it or if they've paid it in our calculations. And then any voluntary prepaid rent? No. Keep going. Any non-refundable fees allowed? You set this up on the property already, but you can adjust this right now. We did have a pet fee in there, but because it was assisted animal, it went to 0. If not, that would be 10. And you can add anything there. Okay, let's go next. All right, any kind of concessions right now in Arizona, we're a hot market. No one's giving concessions, but when the market changes a little bit, we kind of give some free this and that. And next. And then so at the bottom, you have your total required move-in. We show you the calculation to make sure that you got everything correct, because when we prepare a lease and we're going to send it off to sign, we're a little nervous to make sure that we did it right. And then we have the balance at move-in. So in this case, no one has given us any money at all. So they owe us the full amount. And then we put the date that the balance is due. So that's kind of the lease in a nutshell. And then we have additional terms here. If you made any promises, I'll put in granite countertops, I'll replace this, I'll do this, you can go ahead and put all your additional terms that you talked about in this additional terms. And then you can go ahead and agree. And then you just get to preview. We're not sending anything yet. We don't want to send it to the tenant quite yet. We want to review it, look at, see how the lease looks. Scroll down for me, Heather. And then you can just see how the lease works. Now, this lease right here is 30-something pages long. You would say, well, that's too long for me. But you notice it's spaced out because most people nowadays are reading this on their phone. If we tighten it up, and make the fonts too small, then you're not going to be able to read what we have here. So we've kind of opened things up and gone through the lease here. Now, when we send it off for signature, the applicant is going to have to initial each page of the lease to say, I have read this part of the page. So they will initial, and then they will go ahead and sign the last page. It then will come back to you for your final signature. If at any time before you sign it, you see a mistake, they call you, you can always edit your lease. But once you sign it, then you have to go through a cancel your lease process where you give permission to cancel, they give permission to cancel, because once both leases are signed, we just don't have the power anymore to go edit everything that we can do. So it's
Dave,
really
one
good.
more question, please.
Yeah.
Does it have the ability to calculate a percentage late fee? For example, they charge a 10% late fee of any unpaid balance.
It does not at this point, but that is a fantastic suggestion. It's interesting. I'm a landlord in one state and I learn how everybody else does things a little different around the country. I will tell you that will be available here soon. I've just written it down. And that's the reason that we have been having so much success with Rent Perfect, because we build it upon those suggestions. And so give me a couple weeks and that will be in there.
One other question, and this is jumping the gun a little bit, but I'm afraid if I don't ask it now, I'll lose it in the chat. But a question about additional services that you may or may not provide. So those including, do you call employer to verify employment characteristics? Also, do you call current and previous landlords and property managers to find out their payment history, damage to property? Would you lease to them again type of questions?
Okay, so we used to, and in this environment, we were getting less and less landlords cooperating, less and less employers cooperating with what we needed. And our clients were constantly calling us and saying, is it done? Is it done? Is it done? And we're saying, we're waiting. So we decided if we couldn't be in control of the process, we would no longer get involved in a process that we didn't have absolute control over. So we give on the application that comes through at the very end, we give you sheets that you can send off to the landlords to get information, but that is going to be on the landlord, because the way this works is because we have private investigators looking at every file. If there's a process that you could be doing that's sitting in a stack and it's waiting for its turn to come through the process and you could just go do it, you're much better and much faster at getting that done. And so that's the long answer. The short answer is no, we don't do either one for a very specific reason. We don't find much success in it. But we have other ways of teaching to get that done if you don't have success in it either. One is get 4 paycheck stubs from the employer, look at the year to date, do the calculations and make sure they work so you know you have real paycheck stubs. Most people can fake 1 paycheck stub, but they're not going to be able to fake 4 and make the year to date totals all work. It's just too much work. What we also teach on the residential side is to get 12 months worth of rental payments. Everyone has a bank online now on their phone. They can send you 12 months of rental statements, tell you how much the rent was, circle it, or give you some canceled checks. So we now almost in the screening industry can't rely on human beings anymore. More and more people are getting sued. More attorneys are telling everybody not to answer questions. And so we are, the reason we're saying, hey, get 12 months worth of rental payment right now is because we know that a lot of evictions aren't being filed right now in the courts, and I'm not going to be able to go get that information. And the only real person who knows whether they paid rent or not is the landlord. So I've got to verify it myself through bank records or through canceled checks that rent has been paid. And so when I manage my properties, this is just me, I don't rely on any other human being to get data for me. I go get the data directly from what proves that you've paid your rent or that you have a job and that you're employed. And then I always call the employer, not in the number they gave me on the application, but I always look it up and call the employer directly and ask for the person to talk to them. And then once they say just a minute, I just hang up because I'm not really wanting to talk to them. I just want to make sure they're still employed. Because could you imagine getting all these paycheck stubs and having a guy quit 2 or 3 days ago and you calling up and saying, oh yeah, he no longer works here. And you're getting ready to hand the keys to someone who now is currently unemployed. So that's why I do that.
Yeah, I would also add our application process does allow, and you can require proof of income when they're going through that application process. So you could say, you want them to upload a document, paycheck stubs with their application. So it takes that step out, or you could have them go back in at a later time and upload those documents as well. So it kind of makes, the exchange of those documents a little easier. And we do provide a blank rental verification form just as sort of some guidance. So if the tenant reports rental history on their application, they're required to report 2 years back, but they can report, I owned a home, lived with family, whatever their situation was. If they report rental history, it does generate some blank verification forms. It would be up to you to use those forms, but it lists out some questions you can ask if you're going to make that step to call the previous landlords. And it gives you a list of good questions that our attorney approved to ask. So it's something, but yeah, as a third party, we just never had success getting those verifications done, so anyway.
Okay, we're going to get to ACH rental payments a little bit later. We don't integrate, but we do have that as we move on down the road. So now that I've leased the property, I require rentals insurance. And so now your applicant is getting hammered with emails saying your landlord's requiring renters insurance. You can buy it at Rent Perfect for $4.51 for liability, or you can insure your property and that'll be $10 or $15. They get a chance to buy it through us. It makes it real simple, couple clicks of the button, or they can upload a State Farm, any kind of insurance certificate to prove that they've had insurance, and then they quit getting kind of harassed by our system saying that they need that form. So once we get that form, we hand them the keys, And now it is time to, so before I handed them keys, I even set up rent pay. So let's go to rent pay right now, Heather, instead of the move in, move out. So rent pay, we've always had it. And we use a third party, and we weren't super happy with our customer service. If everything went perfect, it worked great. But anytime there was a snag, our vendor that we worked with just didn't give us the support that we needed. So we moved away from them, and we just launched our new rent pay service that gives us a ton more customer service. It gives us more details. It allows us to help our customers within minutes instead of days. And so now I can set up a rent pay. So I just went through, I did the lease. Now I can go ahead and set up a rent pay. I can show you how that's done. I could add a new one. Now, here's what's interesting. Heather, don't do anything yet. I can use this rent pay account for three things. I can say monthly rent. I can get a one-time security deposit if I want, or I can give a miscellaneous payment. Say I got a $30 fine for trash in the front yard in an HOA. I'm able to send them these requests through the system. So let's go do rent first. So you can set up your first payment is due April 1st, and your last payment will be March 31st of 2022.
Oops. I think I messed it up. Okay.
Okay. Then it's going to go ahead and ask us our monthly rent. Now this will be integrated if we picked an account that already had a lease. We didn't have an account that had a lease here, but it'll automatically fill in from the lease, and it'll come across. And your late fees will come across too if you went ahead and did the lease. And then there's a little calculation below that says, here's what your rent will look like if they pay you on the 2nd, if they pay you on the 3rd, if they pay you on the 4th, double check that that's right. And then you'll go ahead and launch that to your applicant, and they will then set up an ACH on their side. And they have the ability to just set up auto payments every month, and you just get paid every month. They don't even have to trigger anything, or they can set it up where manually every month they go in and do the push and push you the rent every month. Now, here's what's neat about this payment system, rent pay. It starts telling them on 5 days before rent's due on 5 days, rent's due in 4 days, rent's due in 3 days, rent's due today. Now rent's late with late fees. And this will not allow them to pay unless they pay in full. You cannot pay partial payments here and start confusing all of the accounting. So that's a nice thing about having your lease in here connected with your rent pay is you're never going to get, if rent was $1,600 and they pay you on the 5th, you're never going to get just $1,600 and having to be chasing $30. They cannot pay it unless they pay it in full. So I love that about this. And I love that I don't have to keep calling and going, hey, where's your rent? Where's your rent? The system twice a day just dings them and tells them that they're late if they are in fact late. All right, Heather, what else did I miss on this? Anything? Because this is good. This has changed my life.
Well, you can kind of see the payment history. So this is where you can view what's going on with your payments. This is my test account. So this was just for Minnie Mouse. We can go to all tenants here.
Dave, while we're looking, do you
Yeah.
happen to know off the top of your head what the percentage for the credit card or ACH fee is?
So it's $3.95 per transaction.
That's for ACH. Do you have details on the credit card?
No, so right now we're not on our Yapstone. We will take a credit card on our other payment processing. Right now we're starting with ACH. We're getting that completely set up and right, and then we will have a credit card available here shortly. The thing about the credit card is it's a pretty heavy fee to the landlord every month. So right now with ACH, it's $10 a month to the landlord to use our rent pay system. That actually goes right to the payment processor. That doesn't come to us. We don't make any money off of it. But their credit card is like $35 a month to the landlord to pay. So we wanted to start with this one, get this one dialed in, and then introduce credit cards second, because we want to do it right. When we're messing with people's money, we don't want to rush anything in too quickly. It's not fun to get a phone call saying, why did you take the wrong amount out of my bank account? Why did you? People get really, really angry when you mess with their money. So right now, ACH credit card is coming soon, but $3.95 to do that. I can tell you, I used to take rent in the mail. They'd come by my house. I'd stop by their house. I get a Venmo on one. I'd have to transfer it into a certain account. I was all over the board in my rental collections, and now I just come in, require this, and you almost will wake up at night and go, did I get my rent? Because everything works so smoothly. You no longer have texts and Venmos and emails and checks in the mail. It's just all centralized. And I don't even have to go to the bank anymore. It just shows up there. And so this is really, doing the background checks and finding the right renter, that's great. And then after that, you see your tenants probably once a month if there's no calls for service, and that is collecting the rent. Now I don't even see them. The rent just comes into my bank account. And so now I have to make up excuses to go over and see them if I want to check out the property or do some kind of inspection. But it really puts everything on autopilot. And I think you'll really like it if you start using it.
So I just was going to show, so this is the payment history screen. That's my test account. So this is the payment history for all my tenants. So you can see, what's unpaid, what's actually past due. Once they schedule a payment, this will say scheduled. Some of them are scheduled because most of the tenants like setting up the recurring payments. So they'll just say, hey, pay my rent on the 1st every month. So you can see ahead of time that it's already scheduled. And then once they actually have a payment submitted for processing, it will come down here into this payment history. I kind of opened up the filter just so you can see. I have it on all tenants, or I'm sorry, all properties, but you could narrow it down by property, by tenant, and then you can export reports as well. So it'll upload this into a nice file in Excel for you or wherever you're going to use that. This is my test account, and I have really cheap rent. So these are all my amounts here, and just helps you organize. We have text message reminders coming soon. So the rent pay, people are just loving that. They can just see in their payment history who's paid, who hasn't paid, and just know what's going on with all their properties at one time.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. So after I now get why I'm in the business is to get my payments. Now I want to go ahead and give them the keys, but I want the shape of my property documented. I want to know that when I get it back in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and there's a big hole in the wall, that I'm taking that out of the deposit and I have proof of it. So the move in, move out process is really cool. So you go ahead and hand them the keys, you send them a move in invite. They get an invite, they go in to their phone and they start going through each room and taking pictures if anything is not right. If it's right, they accept the condition of the room, and we store all those photos and all those reports for you for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, however long you need. Hopefully they're a tenant in there for 5 years, and when they leave, you're going to have pictures from 5 years ago about the shape that your property was in. So now there's no more fighting. There's no more, this was here when I moved in. No, if it was a problem then you would have took a picture of it. And so we have a rental move-in checklist that we give you in addition to the photos that they have taken too. So that's been really cool for me to make. I used to have to go in and do your move-in tour with you and walk through it with you. Now I send you an invite, you walk through it yourself. If you don't do it within 5 days, I can resend the move-in inspection invite again. If ultimately you don't do it again, it's a lease violation. If you have that in your lease, if you don't care, then they automatically sign off that the place is move-in ready and they have no issues with that.
Yeah, the move-in's pretty sweet. On the tenant's end, it looks really cool. They just log in, they can they'll select like a room, like kitchen, counter. They have to upload a picture, leave a comment, and then you just have that proof. Because I mean, you're gonna know when you walk into your property if they trashed it or if they've damaged it. But now you have proof that's easy, that we store for you, that proves, hey, they accepted it in this condition and now there's these holes in the wall. And you can compare the two reports. It's one of my favorite tools that we have. That's also free for RIA members. So you get all these extra tools for free. The tenant can pay that, or the applicant pays that original screening fee, and then you're getting the lease, you're getting the move-in. There isn't that small monthly fee for rent pay, but that's a one low fee for all the properties, and that's to the processor. So all these tools really just for the 95 cents for RIA members. The move-in report is free too. So
let me circle back to that, and we've got a few other questions here. So the question was, what is the total cost for using these services? And Heather just mentioned that. Do you want to?
Real quick, Heather, are we done with the demo side of things?
yeah.
All right, let's come down and see faces and talk a little bit. And okay, perfect. Sometimes I just love to see faces.
Yeah, while we talk, I'm gonna pull up the tenant portal too, just so they can see a quick glance at that while you answer questions.
Okay, perfect. Rebecca, sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. So just to confirm the cost for using the services, Heather mentioned it, but Dave, if you could go ahead and explain that while we're.
Yeah, so I would love to make it absolutely free. People ask me, first of all, how do I even make a living? But another thing is why 95 cents? I have to spend $1 to do a really quick brush on every landlord to make sure they are who they say they are, because I'm going to be sharing a tenant or an applicant's credit bureau. I'm going to be sharing all kinds of personal information. And so I'm not going to pull your credit. I'm just going to do a real quick snapshot to make sure there's a person with that name, with that date of birth, that lives at that address, and make sure we know who we're dealing with. So really, it should be free, but I say, hey, listen, I don't want to make it totally free. If you don't see the value of Rent Perfect, then if you don't want to spend 95 cents with RIA, it's more if you're not a RIA member, but it's almost like buying an app. So that's a one-time. That's a one-time. You get your account. Then when you send out an invite, you actually can pay for the screening if you're just really that nice of a landlord. I would say don't do it. You heard it from me. It muddies the water a little bit about a tenant pulling his own background and then sharing it with you, because the judge is going to ask, well, wait a minute, you violated. No, I didn't. They pulled their own credit. They pulled their own criminal and they shared it with me. And he's going to say, but who paid for it? And you're going to go, me. So you can do it. It's an option. We've had landlords that say, no, I absolutely want to pay for it. So we've put that option in there. But most of the time, the applicant pays. And here's what's nice. They pay with a credit card. That's one more additional piece of information or a pre-screen that we have, and not to waste your time. So if I don't want to lose that $35 or because you're going to find something that I'm not even going to apply and I'm going to go somewhere else. So having someone, Heather always says in these times on our Zoom calls around the country, she always says, make your applicants work harder than they ever have. You're working harder than you ever have. Make them jump through some hoops to make sure you have that tenant that shows the behavior of, I'm willing to jump through hoops. Hey, I lose my job. I'm willing to jump through hoops to get you rent. Make these guys jump through hoops. So if they kind of kick back on you on anything nowadays, then that's just showing you a behavioral pattern that you're not going to want moving into your rental. So I get off on a little bit of a tangent there, but make them pay for it. Right now, it's $35. It's probably going to go to $39 by the end of the year just because our prices are going up. I'm just forewarning everybody, but the applicant is paying for it. Let them pay for it. And that's where we make our money. If you use the rent pay, you're going to get charged $10 from the payment processor. It's going to come out of your bank account from the payment processor. It's not going to say Rent Perfect on it. They just have to keep an account active, and all of the money that they front and do, that's just what they charge. We couldn't find it any cheaper at all. In fact, we negotiated down to their bottom line. They wanted to say $15. We said, no, take it down to $10 for our clients.
And what does that cover, Dave? Just to clarify.
Yeah, that's $10 for unlimited payments to you under unlimited properties under the same entity. So if you have 5 LLCs, you have to set up a payment account for 5 LLCs because money goes into 5 different bank accounts. Then you'll have 5 times $10. If you have 1 LLC or you're a sole proprietor and you have 2, 3, 4, 5 properties, it's only $10 for all of those payments and properties per month. So
So
that's it. That's all of the fees that we're charging right now. And when you go look at other full suite landlord software platforms, you're going to spend hundreds of dollars a month. But since we're not greedy, we make our little bit of money, and we offer these great services because we are landlords and we want to help not only RIAs, but every landlord everywhere. So if you're sitting there going, well, this seems really cheap, you just saw how much stuff you get for really cheap. If I didn't show you that, you'd probably think I was just some, iPhone app that someone put together over the weekend. This has been years and years and years of us programming and really, and we're not done. I mean, I got to tell you, by the end of the year, we're going to have a product called Vendor VIP, which is going to do work orders, and it's going to include your RIA's vendor list in it, not Rent Perfect's vendor list, but RIA vendor lists. And it's going to allow the tenant and the vendor to get together and get something fixed at a house while keeping the landlord in control and in the loop. And so we're going to continue to make our lives as landlords super simple. And along the way, I'm going to pick up a few pennies here and a few pennies there, but it should not go up in price for the landlord. I shouldn't say that, but in the foreseeable future, I don't see anything going up, but possibly to the tenant $39 by the end of the year.
We really appreciate the price point, to say the least. And as RIA members, they get all of the services that you mentioned included. It's such a great benefit to them for, rental property owners to be able to have that. And on the resident paying the fee side, we call that self-selection when we're talking about, when we teach property management classes, is that's one way to have them self-select. If they know it's the screening is not going to come back favorably, they're not going to want to pay those dollars at the outset, and that's just one step you don't have to go through later.
And you didn't lose a problem. I mean, you didn't lose an applicant, you lost a problem. So just let them go. Smile and let them go.
Absolutely.
I would also add in there that the tenants do, and David already mentioned this, but I get this question a lot. The tenant does get copies of their reports. So they're paying, but they get a copy of their report. They get their credit report. It's a soft pull, so it's not going to affect their credit. They get their credit, they get their background. We take the tenant phone calls. So if they're disputing something on their report, or they have a complaint, they come to us. They don't come to the landlord. The landlord refers them to us. So we take a lot of tenant calls. We help them with their applications. If they need help signing, we're all the support there. So it saves that headache from you, so you can do what you need to do, and we handle the tenants as far as our system. Of course, we don't, give them, any information about if they're approved or not. That's in your control, but we handle the support as far as using our system.
And Heather, we're a little old school in our customer service. You can call us and you can get a live person quickly helping you. A lot of these new platforms built out of Silicon Valley, you can put in a chat, maybe but their customer service is so bad that there's a lot of moving parts here. I mean, we're talking criteria, application, lead. I mean, there is so much here just setting up a property that to have somebody walk you through that is invaluable. And we promise you that we'll give you that customer service and make sure your account is set up correctly. If you set your account up correctly in the very beginning, the rest of it just absolutely flows. And if you realized when we went through everything, we make the tenant do most everything. We make them work so we can get on with what we want to get on with, like the fun stuff in life, right? Let's let them work if they want our place. And so you'll see it when I send an invite, when I have them fill out stuff, I have them take the pictures. I have them do almost everything because, like I said before, I'm probably the laziest landlord, but I feel like I do it right. So Heather, we just did a series, the Successful Lazy Landlord series. We're going to start to launch.
Yeah, that's coming. I'm just so excited about this series.
And we also have podcasts. See us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. We are putting out all kinds of stuff as we learn about moratoriums, as we learn about different, some of the stuff I get because landlords call me and say, Dave, I'm doing this. What do you think? I'm like, that's actually a brilliant idea. Why didn't I think of that? Can I share that? And we'll share all kinds of stuff, like a collective landlord think tank. You don't have to just wait for a RIA call. Come find us online. We're trying to survive this. And I want to pass this business on to my kids. I want them to be investors and, you know, and I've got to protect that right now. I think I'm going to make it. I think everyone on the call is going to make it, but we got to make sure we protect this industry for the next generation coming up.
Yeah, I can't wait to use the system for my own rental. I've helped close friends, family. Of course, I help our clients and RIA members. So I've had, some friends where I kind of am in their account with them a little bit. But I have my first rental coming really soon here. So now I can put this to the test for myself. So I'm really excited about it. Lots of
Perfect.
good stuff in there. So
We're
Rebecca,
excited for Heather on that. But, the customer service is incredible, but I have to say, I can get
Thanks, Dave.
confused because I overly complicate things for myself. But truly, I have my children helping me in the business, and in setting this up, it was so simple. It really wasn't difficult at all. So as much as I definitely appreciate the customer service, and there's always something that can go wrong, but it really is a very straightforward, super simple process, which I love about the suite of products and the system you have. I've got several more questions though. Can we do some more? How do you handle month-to-month rental agreements in the system?
So we just go ahead and make it a 1-month lease. And then most state laws say a 1-month lease continues to operate within the same lease until you do a 30-day notice. So, and then you can renew the lease and you can update the lease monthly or annually whenever the lease ends. But you probably don't want to be doing that every month. So you would just set up a month lease and then write it out until you want to make your next change in the lease. Then you'd come in and just update the lease.
yeah, so the template would allow you, our standard lease is written how David said, once the lease ends, it stays in effect until one of the parties gives notice. So if your lease isn't written that way, check with your attorney, but you could write it that way. But we didn't get to show the renewal, but the renewal is so easy. You click renew and then choose new date. It fills all the previous lease data in for you. The renewals are even easier than the first lease go round. So when it is time to renew, that's really easy.
Perfect. And then you answered this, but just to confirm, because it is in the chat box, the ability to upload identification documents and to verify identity with state issued IDs.
Yes. So when they fill out their application, they upload state issued IDs, but they also go through a questionnaire, and you might have seen the out-of-pocket questions maybe at the bank when you log into your bank and they say, okay, what address have you lived at? What color is your car? What they take you. Now, guys, I'm a private investigator. Are those questions beatable? With someone super close to you, I'm not going to say they're not beatable, but they're just one more layer where they have to answer questions. And if they don't get it right, they don't come through the system. And we've had several landlords call us mad. I will tell you, we've had landlords call us mad and say, my tenant can't use your system. They can't get through your system. Well, wait a minute. It's not broken. It's actually working. They're giving us the wrong social security number, and we're not going to let them move through our system if they're not giving us proper identity. So as private investigators, and this is a great point. Remember I said the core is we're private investigators. If we don't have the right person up front, the rest of it's a waste of time, right? I'm going to give you a background check on somebody that doesn't even exist. So identity verification is key to what we do. And as investigators here, we're cross-referencing all this data that we have with the name, the address, the social security number, the date of birth. And we have tools in here that if our investigator has any suspicion of, wait, this isn't right, we have tools, and we even can send them to the federal government Social Security Administration, and costs a little bit of money. They like to get their money, but and verify who that social security number belongs to in the government's records.
Awesome. Next question. We do not charge a late fee, but give an early payment discount on the monthly rent if paid before the first of the month. How would that work with your system?
That is an interesting question, because I think we could use the system, but I've never come across that. So why don't we have that person call us directly and have a conversation with us directly? Because I can set up the settings in a certain way where that absolutely happens. But I haven't run across that before, but that's something I wrote down and something that we will figure out.
Yeah.
Does the software have the ability to collect rental payments on a weekly or bi-weekly basis?
Yes. Heather, wait, Heather, do we have a chance? I don't think we do. I think our programming goes on.
I've heard the development team talking about that. I know we're probably all sick of hearing this, but some of our development got slowed down just a little bit because of the world right now. So I've been in meetings where I've heard them talking about that. So you can set up one-time payments right now and say it's due whenever you want. But as far as getting on a monthly where the system sends something the same every month, that's not quite ready yet. But you could log in and say, hey, this payment's due March 1st, this payment's due March 15th, and you can set up payments like that ahead of time. And I know some people work like that. So we could work it in right now, but as far as the automatic, a monthly recurring, that's still in progress.
You're getting all kinds of kudos and thank yous in the chat bar over here for people that have used the service before. So I'll let y'all take a look at those and bask in the appreciation over here. Also, others are asking, how do they sign up for the service? You can do that by visiting your local group and going through their website to sign up. You can do that through the National RIA website. And all you need to do is make sure that you're using one of those links so that they know that you're a member, so you get all the goodies that are available to you through that special pricing and those special offerings. I think, guys, I've gotten everything out of the chat. If I have not covered a question that you ask, if you'll do me a favor and add it back in again, and then we'll go back out to Heather, who had a couple more things I think that she wanted to show us before we wrap up.
Yeah, I was just going to show the tenant portal, just the home screen, just so you can see that they have all these tools in their account, if anyone's interested in seeing that. Other than that, if Dave wants to keep taking questions, I can just share my screen really quick. Can you see my, okay, there we go. So this is the tenant portal that they have. So when you send them an invite, they create their username and password, and then they end on this screen. So this is where they can view like their rental application. They can edit that. This is a test account, so the credit report would be available. This is where they do their move-in report, the lease, they buy renter's insurance, view their background. So we have, this is where they would pay their rent. So this is their own little portal. Looks similar to the landlords, but they have less settings, of course. But yeah, this is what it looks like for the tenant.
Perfect. And we don't have rent pay to show on this one, do we?
Yeah, I logged into the wrong test tenant. Sorry about that. But this is where the rent would be.
And what they would do is they first come in, they put in their routing number, their checking number, they put in you know, if they want to manually send off the payments each month, or if they want the system just to do it for them. It's real simple. Haven't had any issues with it. Most tenants are thrilled and move about their day. And here's the reality. Most tenants are telling us, when I rent from a big apartment community or a big property management company, I'm used to this. This is what they have. This is what they use. You know, so we always talk about just looking professional, being professional, crossing, you know, our T's, dotting our I's, and it'll let these applicants know that we're serious about our business, and that if you're going to try to get away with anything, we're probably going to catch you, or at least know how to handle it. And we're seasoned landlords, and if we need to take you to court, you know, we're not just going to be stepped on here too. So I think it all starts with the professional system and being professional about the industry.
Yeah, we rarely hear from tenants for help with the system. It's more, hey, is my application complete, or needing help logging in. Of course, we do get some calls with people that need help. You know, if someone's not tech savvy, our team's happy to help them the best we can. But overall, it's pretty intuitive for the tenants. Big buttons they push that they can't miss. You know, the digital signing's pretty smooth. I rarely hear from people needing help with that. So overall, it's most navigated just fine, but we're here for the support if they need.
One last question. You talked about the new work order system and working with vendors once the resident is in. And so the question is, will your work order system integrate with your Rent Perfect system for charges for repairs that are billed back to the resident?
We're going to include all of that. So that's what we're working on now. I got a smile on my face because I'm always the forward thinker around here. I'm always the one saying this is the direction we're going to go. And people have a hard time keeping up with me. And you know, because I would move so fast if they would let me, but I realize that there's a lot of work that's done in everything that we do behind the scenes. And so, yeah, it'll integrate, it'll actually introduce an accounting portion of our program where it starts accounting rent paid in, checks paid out. So it's a big job that we're working on right now, but we get our first peek at it on April 1st, and we get to look at kind of how it's shaping up and developing. And but we've learned that when we promise something in 2 months, it takes 4 months. And so I've decided I'm not promising this until the end of the year, even though it might come out earlier. I've just learned my lesson over the years. So
As a user of the system, I am super excited to get to see this. So
and you know what,
take so many steps off my plate.
Rebecca, let me reiterate something too. This is going to be the local RIA's vendor list. Not any vendor is going to be able to jump up and say, yeah, I want to help landlords. These guys are going to be vetted through the local RIA's. And here's a little thing that we're going to do just to kind of just tell you why I'm so excited. If in Arizona, and you guys probably have this with heating around different parts of the country, you can't find an air conditioning provider in the summertime. Everybody's air conditioning is broken. We're calling. I say sorry. I mean, the last air conditioning repair I got on one of my rentals was at 11 p.m. at night. The guy showed up, and I had to tell my tenants, "Is it worth staying up for?" "Yeah, it's hot. Please, you know." And so they cooperated. But this system is going to contact the vendor, and then if the vendor says no, we can't take the job right now, it's going to roll to the next vendor. It's going to keep rolling, and it's actually going to find a vendor for you. If your preferred vendors are too busy, you're not going to have to get out the yellow pages and start calling. But these are going to not be just anybody who signs up. These are going to be within each RIA chapter. So we're going to go around to the RIA chapters and say, give us your best vendors that everybody loves. And a lot of people might say, well, I don't want to give you my vendor. Then he's going to get too busy when I need him. But we need to keep him busy enough so he's still in business when you need him too, because you don't hire him full time. So wouldn't that be great as a landlord to have 3 or 4 great AC or heater guys, 3 or 4 great plumbers or electricians, 3 or 4 great handymans that you like all of them. Like I'll take any one of them. That's what this system is going to do. We're getting off a little bit on screening, but I just wanted to give you some places where we're going to go into the future. If you have any suggestions, we're always open for that.
And considering we're already off on screening, I want to take a really small jaunt down chasing rabbits. One of the other services that Dave offers that we use when we're onboarding new RIAs. So if you come to us as a RIA, you have to go through now a pretty in-depth screening process, including being screened through his Crim Shield process. Dave, not to get off track terribly, but can you talk for just a moment about Crim Shield for those that are interested in, one, presenting as a professional? So they may want to get screened. I had my entire staff be screened. And some of the conferences we've run, we actually have the participants at the conference be screened before they attend as well, especially if there's a lot of money involved and there's engaging in services involved. So that's something, and it may be something that you want to adopt for the vendors that you're using as well. So just a super quick explanation of what the Crim Shield process is.
So if any of you have Spectrum Cable, which is Charter Communications in your area, we do all the backgrounds for the cable guys in your area. You know that those are the guys that are in your house, in your closets, in your personal areas, and they come to Crim Shield and say, listen, we need to make sure we have the best of the best in these places. They're in a vulnerable place. There's one thing not to do a really good background check on a guy that works at McDonald's, but someone who is in your home or around a lot of money. So where Rent Perfect helps the landlord, Crim Shield kind of helps the employer, and then it issues, and we do a background investigation. You have to pass a certain criteria. Then we issue you a custom card with your branding and your logo on it. that says that each of these people have been background checked by a private investigator. And so it's a way to, a lot of people say, well, I know all my employees and they're great. I don't need to do that. I'm like, but your clients don't know your employees. The people that are around you don't know your employees. Go show your employees off. If they can all pass and they're all great, it's a great way to do a background, but also use some marketing and saying, hey, you don't have to, how embarrassing it is for someone to ask, do you do background checks? Like if you call your plumber and you're like, hey, do you do background checks? And they're going to say yes. But if you led and say, hey, our technician coming out has a Crim Shield certification, he's been background checked, and you offer that information beforehand, it is so valuable. You will probably have a client for life. And so there's the rabbit hole. There's the switch. It's still backgrounds, but one's landlords, one's employers or associations like you use them for. And then everybody walking into your meeting should have a badge on, Rebecca. And and if you're like me and you're old and you forgot their name because you see them once or twice a year, you swing down at their card real quick and you're like, oh, Jim, yes, good to see you, right? I mean, I forget Tim's name every time I see him. So,
I don't know how that's even possible.
No, it's not possible.
Can you please, Heather or Dave, put the Crim Shield link into the chat bar as well? And
yeah, Heather, can you do that, crimshield.com?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then
it's not Crime Shield. It's no E in there. It's not Crime Shield. A lot of people like to see it with their eyes and they think Crime Shield. We shield you from criminals. It's crimshield.com.
And then one piece of advice you're getting, I encourage you to include a follow-up feature that allows the tenant to verify the completion of the repair before you pay for invoices or incomplete repairs.
Okay, I love that comment and keep them coming. Thank you. You're actually going to have people reviewing the vendor. Both the tenant's going to review the vendor and the landlord's going to review the vendor in the transaction. So we're going to keep track on, we want to make sure our vendor goes in there and treats our residents the way they should be treated, and so they're going to know they're going to get 2 reviews on the transaction. I love that. I totally agree with that. And thanks for that suggestion.
Okay, we're 4 minutes away from closing. One other question. Do you have instructional videos available on how to use the system, such as inputting the custom lease? Oh, Heather's already answered that. She has you have a knowledge database. So
yeah, we do. We have a knowledge base. Am I muted? No, we have a knowledge base and we do have a custom lease video right now. Some of our, like David mentioned, we do updates quite frequently on these. So some of them are going to be in the process of just getting them up to all the current features. So just a heads up there, but we do have a video on a lot of the topics. Custom lease is one of them. We also, if it's missing a video, we have a tutorial with pictures, and I will walk you through anything because I love our system. I know it really well. So let me get that link and then David can continue with what he's
doing. And on any screen at one time, whether it's our home web page or you're back behind it, you have a help button that has our knowledge base on it. You can contact us and have a chat with one of our people, or you can just go to our knowledge base and look up articles. So we provide a lot of that. We understand that we try to keep it intuitive and we try to keep it easy, but when we're adding just feature after feature after feature, at some point we step back and go, does it flow, right? Think about building a house one room at a time. And all of a sudden at the end, you ever go into a house as an investor and go, man, this has got like 3 additions on it, instead of when the architect started at the very beginning. So we started out, we're doing background checks. Oh, let's do leases. Oh, and we have to make sure that we go back in our system and we make sure that, okay, now it's not intuitive here. Now we need to change this. So we are not only putting in new stuff, we're also going back to make sure that it makes sense. So just one of the things you do when you do programming and you keep adding, and it gets, we understand that I can look at the screen. I live in the screen, right? But you see it for the first time and I have to look at our clients that just come on the screen and I have to close my mind off and I have to say, what do you see? What is your experience? Because sometimes Heather and I, we just fly through stuff because we're so used to it. And it's hard sometimes to act like a new user. So that's why we listen to everything you guys, every suggestion you give us, because sometimes we're so deep in the trees and in the woods that we don't see stuff. So.
Yep. Yeah, we love
definitely
feedback.
Appreciate all the support. Well, that's all the questions that I have. We really, really appreciate um, I'm sorry, there's a couple more suggestions over in the chat, but I'm sure you'll be saving this
I
chat.
see
So you can
him.
pull these
I see
suggestions out of them. We really appreciate your being here today and sharing the information, giving people an overview of what all's in the system, all the great benefits they have, especially as RIA members. If you're not a RIA member and you're on the call today and you would like to take advantage of these benefits, please reach out to your local RIA. If you have a question on the RIA that is closest to you, you can go to nationalreia.org, click on Find a RIA, and you'll see a map of the US and you can navigate to that local group from that map. They would be happy to have you. There's all kinds of benefits that you get from being a member of a local RIA, everything from national benefits like Rent Perfect, like the Home Depot program, but then there's all kinds of local benefits that are specific to you at the local level as well. So you'll get great value out of your RIA membership, and we invite you to engage with your groups locally. And especially right now, they're there to support you legislatively. There are so many things happening in your area. You need to be aware of those things, and you need to have someone to hold your hand and maybe even dry your tears, but and help you calm down when you're really angry and tell you what you can actually do to make some kind of progress together as you work to keep this industry the great place that it is for us as investors, and to be the great support for communities that we are as housing providers. I really believe that we do quite the service in a community to provide solid quality housing to our residents. And we're here, and the locals are there to help support you in being that quality housing provider. So thank you so much for being here today. We invite you to join us on our monthly calls. We do that on the third Friday of each month at 4 o'clock. You can find those on our YouTube channels archived, and you can go back and see Dave's presentation with us February. Was that fit? I'm losing track of my dates now, but in February, there was a great kind of entree to this before we got into this deep dive, that you can hear some of just the overview of what he has to say about being a rental housing provider in this environment. So thanks so much, guys. We always enjoy having you with us. Go check out their YouTube channel. Engage with their podcast. They're awesome, and you will always learn something if you take the time to visit with them. Have a great day, everyone, and a great weekend.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.